हेलो दोस्तों, वेलकम टू बिटकॉइन हब। इस बार के जो हमारे पॉडकास्ट के गेस्ट हैं उनका ट्विटर हैंडल है इंडियाज़ बिटकॉइन मैन। एंड ही इज़ रियली इंडियाज़ बिटकॉइन मैन बिकॉज उनकी आप अगर बिटकॉइन जर्नी देखोगे किस तरह उन्होंने बिटकॉइन को एक्सप्लोर करने से पहले पिछले 7 8 9 साल में अलग अलग ब्लॉकचेन को एक्सप्लोर किया और फाइनली उनको पता चला कि बिटकॉइन इज़ द मेन थिंग। और उनकी आप ट्विटर प्रोफाइल पे जाके भी देखोगे तो आपको उन्होंने सीधा लिखा है कि बिटकॉइन मैक्सिमलिज्म इज़ द क्योर ऑफ एवरी डिजीज़, समथिंग लाइक दैट। सो क्यों वो मानते हैं कि बिटकॉइन इज़ द सॉल्यूशन फॉर एवरी प्रॉब्लम एग्जिस्टिंग इन द वर्ल्ड राइट नाउ, एंड इट इज़ वेरी क्वाइट ब्यूटीफुल जिस तरह उन्होंने बताया। तो उसके बारे में हमने डिस्कस किया। सो या डू नॉट मिस दैट थिंग। एंड इस साल के एंड तक उनका जो बिटकॉइन के लिए जो प्राइस टारगेट है वो भी काफ़ी बुलिश है। और वो समझाते हैं, बताते हैं कि क्यों इस साल 3 से 4 रीज़न बताए उन्होंने कि क्यों इस साल बिटकॉइन इस प्राइस तक जा सकता है, एंड दैट इज़ वे बुलिश। सो वो उन्होंने बताया। एंड उनकी बिटकॉइन और ब्लॉकचेन डेवलपमेंट जर्नी जो उन्होंने खुद से ही सीखी एट विद दिस ऑल दिस लाइफ एक्सपीरियंस, सो वो भी एकदम मस्त चीज़ है। सो या सी द इंटरव्यू विथ हिम। अगर आपको वीडियो सही लगे तो लाइक करो, शेयर करो, चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करो। या थैंक यू सो मच।
हेलो एंड वेलकम टू बिटकॉइन हब। भाविक ने इन सुवित जी को इंट्रोड्यूस कर भी दिया होगा, बट थैंक यू सुवित जी फॉर टेकिंग द टाइम टू come on the channel, and you are known as Indian Bitcoin man, India Bitcoin man. एंड आपको कई दफ़ा देखा भी है ऑन वेरियस प्लेसेस, वेरियस पॉडकास्ट। आपका रिसेंट वन ऑफ द कॉलेज आप वहाँ पे जाके अपने you had given a talk about history of money and Bitcoin का importance, not just as an investment but as a savings technology. So we've been following your work for a while now, and it's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, Nehal, for such kind words of appreciation. In fact, I was also wanting to meet you, and finally we get to meet. I think we've been in touch for more than a year now, but due to work commitments from your end as well as my end, वो possible हो नहीं पाया. But I'm so glad to be finally here, is all I can say. Good to see you as well, Bhavik.
यस, इट वॉज प्लेजर मीटिंग यू, इंडिया बिटकॉइन मैन। एंड चलो स्टार्ट करते हैं। आई एम सो मच एक्साइटेड फॉर दिस रिकॉर्डिंग।
Awesome. तो सुवीत जी, आप बताइए, वी डू नो अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट यू, बट इट वुड बी ग्रेट फॉर आवर लिसनर्स टू नो हु यू आर, एंड आपका अगर पर्सनल बैकग्राउंड, लाइक व्हाट हैव यू बीन डूइंग, व्हाट आर यू अप टू, आपके प्रीवियस बिजनेस वेंचर्स, एनीथिंग यू वुड लाइक टू शेयर विद अस।
So, Nihal, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I started at the age of 16, and I went into a chemicals trading and adhesives import and distribution business in India. I went to Germany at the age of 17, got hold of a company. 4 5 years, I struggled a lot. 2002 onwards, my train really left the station in a big way. And by 2015, I had added a lot of other products like construction chemicals and PU foams and lacquers. Eventually, I sold this company to Nippon Paints in 2015. And from then, I've been a restaurateur. My restaurant, Ardor 2.1 in Connaught Place in New Delhi, is pretty famous for thalis, United India Thali, and the Modi ji ki 56 inch Bahubali Thali. So we became like Thali connoisseurs and Thali. We were pretty synonymous with that. And that's been my journey until now. And now I'm in the process of setting up an overseas company as well. I cannot name and disclose the location exactly, but yeah, it's an overseas company again targeted at some decoration items like laminates and edge bands and different kinds of other stuff for the construction and architecture oblique interior design industry. So that's my. I've been like a businessman all my life. It's been about 25 years since I've been working. So that's me.
That's awesome. मतलब आपका काफी varied experience है, and it's all hands-on and on the ground kind of an experience. So I would like to know, and our viewers would like to know, how did you find Bitcoin among all of this? Like, it's unusual for your experience and your expertise जिसमें आपका था, and to stumble upon Bitcoin randomly, कैसे कैसे हुआ? Please enlighten us.
Very funny journey. Actually, I'm basically very curious mindset guy. And I've also been, somebody came and told me about Bitcoin in March of 2017, and I just randomly bought 4 BTC at that moment. It was, I think, about $1,000 each, 60,000-70,000 rupees ka dollar tha, and I bought that. And I eventually lost all of this. 1.5 BTC I lost in Gain Bitcoin, and 2.5 BTC I lost in this Bitfinex. These are all MLM Ponzi schemes built on top of Bitcoin to extract it. Anyways, I forgot about it, and I, never thought about it. Even after 2017, 18. In 2020, once COVID struck us all, and from the hospitality industry being cut very deeply, and also, as I told you, I'm very curious mindset because I started learning coding at that time just for fun. So I started interacting with the Bitcoin blockchain. I started interacting with the, Ethereum blockchain. And then Solana. I learned everything. I learned Solidity. I learned Rust, JavaScript, everything on my own, self-learning process. And then I got so carried away with this. The technology was so beautiful for me, and initially I was never a shitcoiner. I never rugged anybody. Neither did I promote any shitcoin. But I went deep into Solana's parallelization and Bitcoin's reverse Polish notation stack, the languages I'm talking about, and Ethereum's Solidity and the way it works like a JSON object. So ultimately, I got so fascinated that I started developing smart contracts in Solana and Ethereum. Eventually, in 2022, after the FTX debacle, when I lost all my money, I again, I became Bitcoin maxi because I understood in depth after being, into shitcoins as well as Bitcoin, that ultimately the only deal that really matters is Bitcoin, and the only use case of blockchain is money. Otherwise, you can do it on a centralized database faster, cheaper. Anything. I mean, we talk about RWAs today. I can decipher how all this is a piece of shit, but ultimately, I think everybody has to go through their own journey to understand it better. But as I said, being a computer science literate guy and being a curious mindset guy, and I went on this journey of really understanding what money is, and then what Bitcoin is, and how it's going to revolutionize the financial landscape and the monetary system of the world. So ye meri journey hai. This is exactly how it actually happened. And it took a long time, because I was always involved in my own business also. So people generally, once they figured Bitcoin in 2017, they became like really big evangelists in 2018. But for me, it was a bigger journey because I was always involved in my business also. So, for me, I forgot it in 2018 after the bull run was over. Then I again picked it up in 2020. Then I again lost in 2022. And then from there on, I've stuck to my guns in such a big way that today I'm India's Bitcoin miner, and I'm always advocating and teaching people about what Bitcoin really is and how it's going to change the entire world for good. And we can
Right.
help.
Yeah, for sure. भाविक, आपको कुछ ऐड करना है?
नहीं, ऐड तो मैं क्या करूँगा, बट लाइक इट वाज, ये मुझे लाइक सरप्राइज लगा और अच्छा भी लगा कि यू लॉस्ट 2 times, एंड इट वाज वेरी, वो हार्ड होगा आपके लिए, बट या लाइक यू हैड लर्न सो मच, लाइक मैं फील इमेजिन कर सकता हूँ मैं.
The pain was pretty bad after the second bull run when I was actually understanding the technology. But I got involved in newer technologies and newer coins and, all this shit coins as we call them. But keeping my funds on FTX and losing them all in one go on 8th November 2022 was a really painful experience for me. And you have to go through that pain sometimes in order to become a Bitcoin maxi, as I am today. I don't talk about any shitcoins. If somebody even asks me about shitcoins, I said my financial advisor only advises me to talk and discuss and invest in Bitcoin. Rest everything I don't know. I'm not very, very sure. I'm very, I just shrugged off the question rather than engaging in a back debate or teaching them, unless and until they also themselves want to be taught. Because most people believe in not getting taught and only getting taught with pain. So, I generally try to avoid conversations about shitcoins. But if somebody really pesters me, then I go back at them and I really shatter all their ideals about shitcoins. Even I'm talking about the idealists. Most of the people even actually know that these shitcoins are shitcoins, but some technical people that I interact with are actually idealists also for some chains, and I will shatter their dreams if I get into a detailed technical debate. But anyways,
So, so to add to that, like when you mention that, okay, when because आपने दो बार हारा है, and then you've again realized that there's only Bitcoin which acts as money, and that is the only true asset or currency keh lo, which makes a difference. And everything, all the altcoins, everything which came after Bitcoin is trying to make a better version of Bitcoin, which will not happen until there is, Bitcoin ke forks jitne chahe bana lo, but there's only one which was initially, curated and
Bitcoin
made
is what? Bitcoin is a protocol at first. It's a
exactly.
network system. And
Yes,
most importantly, it is money. And
true.
money converges into one. There
True.
cannot be different kinds of monies. Grisham's law, bad money will drive out the good money in the hands of holders like me or hodlers like
Absolutely.
me. Point is that Bitcoin is nothing but money, and money, there cannot be different kinds of monies. The world converged to a gold standard eventually over 5,000 years. We were using seashells and, rice stones and whatever. But it eventually converged to gold. Why not silver? Why not platinum, even being more scarce than gold? The point is gold has so many other features, that make it not only scarce, but it maintains its entropy, the malleability, and all the other things, and the production cost, and the fact that you cannot go more than 2% inflation in gold, and being more readily available and being more used as a language across the world, became the first and most accepted widely stored value called gold, and being money for 5,000 years. So we can, the point is that you have to understand the monetary history of the world also in order to understand Bitcoin. And for that, you really need a curious mindset. And
Right.
Bitcoin is the only money that will exist over the next 1,000 years. Everything else will come and go, dissipate against it, but eventually everything will go to zero against it. That I'm very sure about.
Awesome. So when a newbie, कोई भी कह लो या आपके inner circles में, who's very new to this concept, and we as Bitcoiners, sure, we know that once you delve into it, then you go back to history of money, वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. And this gold का comparison and history, because gold is on the rise, there's a lot of comparison also being made. And a lot of gold bugs are extremely against. नहीं ऐसे कैसे compare कर सकते हो? It's just newly formed, सिर्फ 15 साल पुराना है. It's rubbish. It doesn't have monetary history वगैरह. So when a newbie asks you questions like this, कि what is, why should we compare it with a gold? और इतना क्या खास है इसमें, and why are you comparing it? What would be your pitch to them, or what would be your few sentences where you can explain to them what this is
Simple,
about?
yaar. It's very simple. Gold is not transportable. Bitcoin is instantly transportable over the internet. It's digital. It's a ledger. It's an information system. Gold is physical, and hence everything which is digital is going to be physical. Eventually, we've seen that. We've seen iPhone, and we've seen, Netflix, and we've seen the Kodaks getting beaten down, or the blockbusters getting beaten down. So eventually, everything which is digital, like human beings also, we are more consciousness than the physicality around us, So everything digital will break anything that is physical. Secondly, gold is also not verifiable. You hold some gold, you tell me, I have to agree and trust you. Trust is the main problem of today's fiat monetary system also. You have to trust your government, the bureaucrats, that they will not inflate too much or debase the currency too much, which unfortunately we are not going to be able to do going forward, because it's the fourth turning. And also we are into a big long-term debt crisis. The world's debt to GDP is more than 300%. On a $90 trillion world GDP, we are almost $310 trillion of debt, which is like 3.5 times the GDP. Now imagine you're a business which has 10 lakhs of revenue every year, but you have a 30 lakh rupee loan, and at a 5% or 6% nominal interest rate. Will you be able to actually service even the interest costs? Forget your operating costs and everything else. So the point is, this entire system is going to get reset very soon. And I think it's going to be very soon now. We're at the end of the long-term debt cycle, as Ray Dalio very famously puts across. So the point is that you have to have hard assets. Gold is one of them. and Bitcoin is the hardest, most scarcest, and immutable, digital, decentralized, global, non-sovereign, backed by energy asset, So there is no comparison between gold and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just exponential gold. It's just that people, uh, uh, they will go upon their own biases because gold has been around for so long and Bitcoin is a new technology. So in order to grasp a new technology, you have to really dig deep and learn about it. And people like us who've done the homework, we are much ahead as compared to the others because they're yet to do their homework. But eventually the world will catch on. There is no doubt about it in my mind.
या so आपने ये कहा कि पूरा वर्ल्ड पूरा रीसेट या रीस्ट्रक्चर होने वाला है एंड यू आर सेइंग दैट वो बिटकॉइन के टर्म्स में होगा. सो आपको क्या लगता है कि कितने टाइम में कितने टाइम में ऐसा हो जाएगा कि या more than 60, 70, 80% वर्ल्ड को क्या पता
Nobody
चलेगा?
knows the answer to this question.
What
And
do
if
you
anyone
think?
tells you, it's just guessing in the dark. But in my opinion, the macro condition today is becoming worse and worse. Why I say that is because the US has $36 trillion in debt itself, the government, which is more than the GDP of the US. Now, once you've crossed 120 or 130% of your GDP, and with the interest rates being at 5% almost in the US, their service cost of the interest itself is going to be about $1.5 trillion. Their annual budget is about $5 or $6 trillion. The interest expense itself has become more than defense spending and more than some of the biggest items combined together. So as I said in my previous corollary that your business is running on 10 lakhs of revenue every year and you have a 30 lakh rupee loan, will you be able to service it? No. That means there has to be some restructuring or a reset. And the US government also knows it. And what is the reset going to be? It is going to be around hard assets. Either they're going to monetize the gold, revalue it at a certain cost, or they're going to buy Bitcoin for the strategic Bitcoin reserve and then revalue that Bitcoin and buy everybody else's Bitcoin and accumulate more hard assets. Or it's going to be some tug of war between different currencies like BRICS and everything. But eventually, as I said, being the hardest money ever invented, the most scarcest, immutable, hard cap, non sovereign, neutral global asset, I think Bitcoin will win. And there is no doubt about it in my mind because the hardest money always wins. And Bitcoin is the hardest money. Fiat money is just a free floating, government issue, debt based money. I don't know if your listeners are really aware of the macro situation, but fiat money is basically what? The benchmark of the entire or the global bedrock of the entire world is the US Treasury. Now, US Treasury is what? It's the debt of the US government. Now, debt is money in today's fiat world. Bitcoin is not debt. Bitcoin is a bearer asset. It's like cash. It's in your wallet, it's yours. If I send you Bitcoin and you put it into a cold storage wallet and you control the seed phrase, you own it. Nobody can take it from you. It's a bearer asset. And once I give it to you, my balance in my wallet becomes less and your balance in your wallet becomes more because there will only be ever 21 million Bitcoin. So the idea is that eventually people will understand this all. It's a solo journey. Bitcoin is like more. Why do most people do not understand Bitcoin? Is because most people like to be told what to do. They believe in authority and in herd mentality. Whereas understanding, truly grasping Bitcoin is a solo journey of being curious enough to understand the monetary history of the world and then being a little edgy in terms of understanding a little bit of computer science and then understanding where the world is heading. So, it's like a solo journey. But if you've grasped it, if you figured it out, then Bitcoin is not a percentage of your portfolio. It's your portfolio. Because you've understood that it is the hurdle rate in finance. It grows at 55% every year, annually, on a CAGR basis. If you can't beat Bitcoin's returns in your business, then there is no use of doing business. It's just better to hold Bitcoin and you will eventually become rich as compared to everybody else in the world over a period of 4, 5, 7, 10 years. And it's that beauty of mathematics and cryptography and security and trust and decentralization and money that has captivated me, and people have not understood it yet. And that's why we have the edge. We can now educate people. We can make them understand that, whatever definition of money you have is wrong. You think the Indian currency is a money? Yes, it is money in the eyes of the Indian government and also in your eyes currently. But eventually, what will be money in 30 years? Imagine that. It will be global. It will be internet based. Okay, even the Indian rupee is UPI and internet based, but it is permissioned. It has a node, which is the Indian government and the RBI, and a single node runs it and inflates the currency away. Whereas Bitcoin is unstoppable. It's run by hundreds of thousands of nodes across the world. It's censorship resistant and it's hard capped. Nobody can inflate the supply. So everybody will finally figure it out that whatever definition of money that they have is wrong. But it's just that it's a process. As I said, it's a solo journey. You can't group think into understanding Bitcoin. It is like you have to go through the pain to understand it.
For sure. You've been in the space for a while now, and you must have seen the transition. The retail crowd was doing its own thing and they were distracted in all sorts of coins. But we have a new set of investors and savers, Kehlo, which have started from 2024 onwards. The ETF people and the investment firms, the corporates, the hedge funds, ye sare log have come which were not there before 2020. So how do you see that change between the regular retail crowd and all these investment firms? And I'm sure you must have attended a lot of conferences as well. So, on ground situation kaisa hai, and how does it affect the overall dynamics in Bitcoin terms? Like one thing is the price, but also the stability of the network and the future of it. What do you think about that?
So now there are two different worlds. One is the crypto world, which is getting decimated. The other one is the Bitcoin world, which is ecstatic. And why I am ecstatic is because the institutional crowd has finally figured out what Bitcoin really is. And they're patient people. They do not allow the price to run off. They are just patient buyers. But the point is that ETFs and these treasury companies which have come into existence now, thanks to Michael Saylor, are giving a real push to Bitcoin adoption across the world. More and more people are getting to learn about it. More importantly, what is happening is that the world has a big store of value problem. And this is the biggest problem. If you look at the chart of global M2 versus the S&P is simply flat against it. That means even if the S&P has grown by 12% a year or 8 to 12% on an average every year, which is the best index in the world, which is the US S&P. If you compare it against the central bank balance sheets of the world, it's a flat line. That means 12% is your hurdle rate. If you're not earning 12% more every year, if you're anywhere in the world, you're just losing out on a relative basis because your purchasing power parity is getting eroded. So that's the hurdle rate. And now people have understood that Bitcoin over 16 years has given a 55% CAGR. So Bitcoin is becoming the new hurdle rate in finance. If you can't beat Bitcoin, you better sell off your business and get into Bitcoin and just sit on top of it, because that will outperform anything else. And it's like people think that, Bitcoin is a Ponzi. Have you ever seen a Ponzi come back from being dead? A Ponzi never comes back once it's dead. There is some beauty of mathematics and cryptography and economics and computer science behind this entire network protocol money that makes it come back every time and become the hurdle rate in finance and become the topmost asset. So the ecstatic nature of the financial markets, and especially now coming back to the treasury companies that you told. See, the world has a big mandate, especially hedge funds, and to invest in certain assets. Like there are hedge funds which are specifically meant for bonds. They cannot invest outside of bonds. So Michael Saylor, the CEO of Strategy, came up with convertible debt offerings. It's like a 0% interest rate and 5-year with 55% premium, between 45 to 55. BTC anyways has crossed that even for his 2020 convertible debt offering, which was supposed to mature in 2025. BTC crossed that price in 2021 only. And it's much higher since then anyways, even after the drawdown of 80% in 2022. And these kind of different structures or different notes, like convertible debt or issuing of equity at the margin, or convertible, or these preference equity like stock. These are different kinds of instruments meant for different kind of people who have been used to investing in the equity markets to gain exposure to BTC. Now
Right.
people have been doing it, and so successfully, that MicroStrategy actually grew from being a $500 million company in 2020 to a $100 billion company in 2025, which is like a 200x return. And now we have so many other companies trying to, copy that. In fact, we just had Jack Mallers, Cantor Equity Partners. It's a combination between Cantor Fitzgerald Cantor, which is owned by Howard Lutnick, who's the Commerce Secretary of the US, and Bitfinex Tether, which is the largest stablecoin issuer, and Strike and SoftBank. Sorry. So it's backed by all these three entities, and Jack Mallers is the CEO. He's an amazing guy. I've met him, and he's like so full of energy, and he talks about Bitcoin all the time because he understands it, that people want exposure to BTC, and most of the people in the equity markets do not have the know-how to actually self-custody their BTC, but they want exposure to the underlying asset. And because they're used to investing in the equity markets, and there is a lot of demand for different kinds of products like convertible debt or equity or everything, or preferred equity. So these companies have now a 3x or a 4x, multiplier to their MNAV, which is the net asset value. So if BTC in their balance sheet is about 5 billion, or let's say in MicroStrategy's case is about $37 billion, now it's worth $93 billion as a company, because it's processing that BTC and giving securitized products in the equity markets on behalf of that. So as I said, the mood is euphoric in the Bitcoin community. Unfortunately, because Bitcoin dominance has been going up, fortunately for us being Bitcoiners, but unfortunately for the shitcoiners, since the purchasing power parity of their coins is going down constantly, the mood in the crypto community is almost decimated. And I think this will continue until the Federal Reserve starts to explicitly print money, which I think is also not far away. Shitcoins will have some heydays, some sunny days, but it's not now. As of now, the world is really going towards a hard money standard. It has to eventually, because money is better to be hard. Now, people will say that, it's better to have elastic money like fiat money, and you can increase and decrease the supply, and central banks are very necessary. But eventually, I can debate endlessly on why central banks are the biggest scams in the world. And also, I can debate on why hard money will eventually win. And there is no need for uh, more than 21 million Bitcoin. And
Sure.
that will be the global bedrock of being the best money, which will exist. This will happen in 15, 20 years. People will understand this. Global trade will happen in Bitcoin. Prices will be denominated in Bitcoin. Bitcoin will become a medium of exchange. At
I
the
mean,
moment, it's a store of value,
like,
but it will also become a unit of account.
yeah. To add to that, I think Russia and China are already doing oil trades in Bitcoin and other Tether, I think, in one of those. So
I think it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
true.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
It's global
So
game theory.
to come to your point, when you said about companies like 21, Jack Mallers' company 21, we know that over the years since 2020, there was this mad rush which Michael Saylor had to accumulate as much Bitcoin, because he's clearly mentioned this, that one day in my dream, saw that, I do not have enough Bitcoin. And what if everyone in the world gets, that Bitcoin? So as of now, they hold close to 535,000, upwards of
553 at the
5.
moment.
Okay. 553 Bitcoin as of now on their balance sheet. It's almost 2.8% of the entire supply of Bitcoin.
553,000 something Bitcoin and 2.68
No, it's
something percent.
535,000. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But
one out of 38, like you can think of 1 out of 38 Bitcoin.
Correct.
yeah,
So he's a visionary guy. He understood it,
true.
that eventually the world will catch on to it, and once you understand Bitcoin, it's whatever Bitcoin you own, it's not enough. You want to have more. Once you understand it, and he understood it pretty well. He's such a big evangelist and a big educator and one of the biggest educators in the Bitcoin space. So
that is true.
And he's actually putting his own capital at risk in order to showcase to the world, and which he's successfully done until now, that you can turn a zombie company which has only a few $100 million of cash flows a year, but no real growth prospects. And he had a lot of cash balance, but it's a zombie company, and you can turn that zombie company into a Bitcoin oil drilling machine treasury company, and actually 200x, your net worth, using the power of the capital markets. What else do you need as a proof, man?
Absolutely. This will actually, blow the minds of traditional finance guys. But coming to my question, can any other company, now that there is a clear distinction between what strategy is doing and the amount of Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet, and the next competitor in the space is Marathon Holdings, which is almost 10 times lesser in terms of Bitcoin they hold on their balance sheet, with a company like 21, which is coming up, can they ever catch up to a strategy?
Very interesting question. Jack Mallers is a visionary guy. He belongs to a family which has been commodity traders. He has been backed by SoftBank, which is the bedrock of Japan's growth post-deflation in the 1990s. He's also been backed by Bitfinex and Tether, which is the largest stablecoin issuer with $150 billion. He's also backed by the Commerce Secretary of the US. So I think it's going to be a very tough competition. They would definitely be involved in very innovative product offerings. Eventually, I think they could come close, but beating Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy looks extremely difficult, because the moment you keep buying more Bitcoin and become a Bitcoin treasury company and an operating business like MicroStrategy, it will be as if that if you're buying Bitcoin because you're contributing to the network and there are only 21 million, so you're going to make Saylor that much more richer, which means it brings his capacity further to actually issue more debt and equity to buy more Bitcoin. So it's going to be a global arms race between both of them, and perhaps other companies also, which will enter into the foray eventually as time passes. But I think surpassing Saylor with a 5-year lead that he's now had is going to be very challenging, even though I believe that Jack Mallers is the right guy to do this job, because he's also a hardcore Bitcoiner and he's very aggressive being a young guy. But I think catching Saylor would be very difficult. But
That
it's
is true.
anybody's guess.
Absolutely. And I think Howard Lutnick is the main beneficiary, I'd say, in fiat terms, because he has a stake in strategy as well. Like Cantor Fitzgerald has a stake in strategy. And now with 21, he's getting hands-on, and he's had an investment in Tether as well. So he has his hands all over the place. And I think he's the ultimate.
What more do you need to know? The Commerce Secretary of the US is a big Bitcoin bull with hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure in Bitcoin, and his company has $1 billion of exposure in MicroStrategy, and he's now come up with another operating company as a joint venture with Tether and SoftBank. What more bullishness do you need apart from this in the Bitcoin sphere, that we are going to take over the world? There is no other way around. There is no second thought about it in my mind. It's just a matter of time.
True. So, you know what? Having said this, it brings us to the question, this is all happening in US. Okay, Metaplanet is doing it in Japan. There's Blockchain Group, which is doing it in Europe and Paris, Europe. What's happening in India? Like, when do we bring the party to India? And there's only one company as of we know, and I think we've interviewed Siddharth as well in the past to speak about it.
Amazing guy, right? Amazing guy, huh?
Yeah. Hands off
The point is that the faster people understand, even if it's not necessarily the government, I think the better it is, because I've always been bullish on Indians and never on India because of the bureaucracy that we have. The point is that India is always late. It only wakes up after getting a thick beating on the pichwada. The point is that India is always about five years late to any party, or 10 years late. But we've been growing so tremendously, and I don't think there is a need for the Indian government to even think about it right now. But eventually they will have to. There is no other way around it. The point is that Bitcoin is going to eat everybody's lunch, and fiat currencies are going to become redundant. Everything's going to infinitely go against zero in Bitcoin terms, against Bitcoin. So eventually the Indian government will also be forced. It's like gunpowder, Bitcoin. It's not that the Chinese invented the gunpowder, as Saifuddin Ammous says, for medicinal purposes, and they used it for medicinal purposes. But when came the Europeans, they understood the power of this gunpowder being used in the barrel of a rifle. And from there, it became this thesis of hard power or soft war, like Jason Lowery in his book says, that it's about projecting that network of hundreds of thousands of computers running in real time, solving a computational puzzle at a hash rate of 1 zeta hash, which is like 1 with 20 zeros or 21 zeros in front of it per second. So that is the strength of the Bitcoin network. It consumes more than 140 gigawatts of energy, which is more than what Sweden or Netherlands consume in a year. The point is, it's such a secure, big, reliant, trustworthy, and stable network now. And it's so big that eventually the Indian government will also have to come into the foray. Like the Bhutanese government has been mining, maybe India will also start mining over some time. But India is, as I said, always 5 years late to the party. The US is at the forefront right now.
Right. I think from what I see and what is happening, that it'll first come in the equity space, and then it'll be noted by a lot of officials. And that's what's happening with JetKing being the first company in India to adopt Bitcoin treasury for its company.
As
And then,
JetKing becomes more and more richer over time, people will understand more what is the reason behind them getting richer. And then the underlying asset, Bitcoin, comes into the picture. And then people will realize that Bitcoin is the way towards financial freedom and richness. So why not adopt it?
true, absolutely.
And it's a game theory, it will play on.
Mhm.
So amazing work by Siddharth is all I can say. He's understood the power of Bitcoin faster than any other public listed company in India.
True.
And there is no other way around except that Siddharth's purchasing power will grow over time, and
Yeah.
others will be forced to adapt it because they will envy Siddharth, is all I can say.
Sure. Absolutely. So when you said about projecting power and the soft power, again, when it comes to mining, which is very underrated and which is not discussed, people only discuss the financial upside of Bitcoin because that's all they see. That's in the front. But what's powering this is the Bitcoin network of hash rate and hash power. And as we saw in 2021, there was a ban, Chinese mining ban, and everything, all the hash rate moved to US. And now they are, very heavy on it. And recently, I think Eric Trump partnered with Hut 8, and they've started an American BTC mining corporation. So stuff like that too. And India has a lot of renewable energy source. So again, my question would be like what Bhutan did or what El Salvador did and what UAE is doing currently as well, partnering with Marathon. Mining, when do you see, what duration do you see? Like it could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, because everyone focuses on the financial aspect, but never on the mining. And mining is heavily capital
I
intensive.
think for India, the best solution would be if somebody in the government higher up understands the power of Bitcoin, and instead of mining, which is a very difficult business, you could be profitable. But at this moment, the miners are unprofitable with the current price. The mining cost is much more. I think the country which actually prints its own money and buys Bitcoin with it will be the biggest winner if they start doing it today when the price is so low. We are at a 90% discount. Bitcoin should be at least $1 million. But the point is that the country which realizes and actually does this, will be the biggest winner over a period of time. Like El Salvador. They've been not only mining, but they've been buying a Bitcoin a day. I cannot tell you, and you cannot even comprehend the power that El Salvador will be having in the next 20 years. It's a long-term game. But they're going to be a very powerful country in South America. They're not going to be a small island nation which is just, filled with poverty and criminals and everything. The whole country is changed. Why is Max Kaiser shifted to El Salvador? Because he knows this. He's been a visionary since 2011. He's been talking about this hard reset since then. Andreas Antonopoulos, look at this guy. He's the guy who actually taught me through his seminars and his books. I've read the Mastering Bitcoin. I've done the coding on top of Bitcoin. I understand how powerful this technology, this network, this money is. It's just that it's a matter of time before other people also figure it out. And I think sometimes necessity is the mother of inventions. We are bound for a crisis. Once the crisis hits, the consciousness will shift very quickly. And a sovereign debt crisis is just looming around the corner in the US. As I told you, if you look at it mathematically, it's impossible to pay the debt. It's only one-way ticket. The ticket is either inflation in very big numbers to inflate away the debt, or a big reset in which there is complete deflation. And I don't think they will allow deflation to happen. So ultimately, the central banks and the government will be left with no option but to print the problems away. And that will lead to a mania in appreciation of Bitcoin also, because being the hardest.
When you say that, how do you view Bitcoin as? Is it an investment? Is it a savings? Or is it something to trade with? How do you view it as?
It's a fascinating question. So Bitcoin is nothing but pure money.
Okay.
It is not an investment. Investment is basically you put in a currency to work in a security in the equity markets in hope for an appreciated gain or return over a period of time. But Bitcoin itself is money. So this is not an investment. Once you have to understand that concept. Some people say Bitcoin does not have cash flows. How can money itself have cash flows? How can Indian rupee itself has cash flows? It's the buying of a security which you do with the Indian rupee which can have cash flows. Gold does not have a cash flow. Gold is money. The point is that the money is corrupted. The global monetary system is flawed. And once people understand this, that they're working for money which somebody else can print at their own will, and money should be hard and money should not be like what they are currently used to, then there will be a mass consciousness shift happening. So Bitcoin is not an investment for sure. It can be called savings because money is savings. Why do you keep money? Obviously, nowadays you don't keep money too much because it's a currency which can be inflated away. It's like the government, you have put some money in your locker in the home, and the inflation is a mechanism through which the government takes away that money from your locker without touching your locker by printing more of the denominator. But nobody can print more Bitcoin and the denominator remains the same. And being money, it cannot have any cash flows. So you can say that it is a pure commodity money, which has no cash flows, but it is appreciating against everything else because the entire global system of money is flawed right now. And hence, you can very well say that it has no cash flows and it is a savings mechanism. It is not an investment. It is pure commodity money. That's all.
Right.
I hope I have explained it in a way that should be easy. If not, I can go ahead again. I can explain much more deeper.
Sure
I think people need to understand this.
For sure. No, because the concept of, like what you mentioned, commodity money, people have not seen this for ages. Like gold was the last where you had little gold coins which could be traded as a value exchange, and gold has its own flaws. That's why came Bitcoin, and now you can send it on a digital
I
network.
think you're wrong, because I think the entire history of the world has always been about commodity money.
Really?
Money has always been a commodity with no issuer. Like gold does not have an issuer.
Yeah.
This concept of fiat money, free floating currencies created out of thin air by government printing and the RBI and other central banks issuing it as bonds, putting it to the secondary markets, which the primary dealers like banks buy. This has all been a modern day 50-year-old experiment which will vanish, because eventually all fiat currencies go to zero, because it is embedded in trust. You have to trust the politician and the government and the bureaucrats that they will not inflate it away. But eventually what happens is, the more you trust in humans, the more they betray you. It's better to trust in mathematics. Maths will never betray you, no matter what. Even if you two become as friends, 1 plus 1 is equal to 11. But in mathematics, 1 plus 1 will always be equal to 2. It will never be 11. And Bitcoin is simply backed by mathematics and cryptography and game theory.
That is true.
So it's always better to back on hard money, commodity, Bitcoins,
That's true. Yeah.
You
No,
get my point. You get my point.
absolutely.
Right.
So,
इसमें जैसे इन्होंने बोला ना कि बिटकॉइन इज मनी, सो इट्स अ वेरी गुड आंसर, वेरी गुड आंसर, बट प्रॉब्लम मेरे ख्याल से लोगों में ये आता है कि पीपल डोंट अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट मनी इज, right? So
Exactly.
when they understand money, then like no one will need any other investments,
So
anything.
as I said before also, in order to understand money, it's a personal journey. You need to be a little curious to understand boring subjects like the monetary history of the world. And you need to be a little curious also to nudge a little bit into computer science and see why digital money is going to be the most important money in the next 30 years,
Yes,
and something
yes.
which is incorruptible. And what is that? That is Bitcoin. So then you can bring and create that corollary in your mind, and that clicks. Before that, you're just in herd mentality. You think this is money because somebody has told you, and that somebody is the government, or the
Hmm.
yeah, and that
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
and your friends and whatever, because we are
Right,
all
right.
we're all into herd mentality. But the point
Ah,
is that this global reset which is coming will actually shake the consciousness of the world, and it's coming very soon now.
shake the consciousness of the world. Very good
Yes,
word. Like किस like well maybe यही सोच रहा हूँ मैं, मुझे भी यही लग रहा है कि यार पूरा वर्ल्ड का कॉन्शियसनेस चेंज होगा in a very good way. So आप किस तरह
for
देखते हो?
sure.
Like I would like
See,
to
Bitcoin is
know.
hope. Bitcoin is freedom money. It's hope. Whenever somebody cannot inflate, see, what is money? Money is basically time and energy extracted. You're putting in time, we are spending time here, we're doing some proof of work. Bitcoin is also based on proof of work. So we are spending energy in talking to each other, right? We're doing proof of work. Now, if that can be inflated away by somebody else's will, like the governments and central banks, then that means your time and energy, which you have limited on this planet, is getting inflated away. When your time and energy, which is basically in extracted form called money, cannot be inflated away, then that means you can save that money and pass it to future generations, and that is the best money. And it's how do what more do I say than except that, as I said, your most precious asset apart from Bitcoin is your time. That's limited.
Right.
But when the government prints money, your time is getting inflated. It's your time is getting inflated in such a way that you become poorer even after having
शॉर्ट
spent
टाइम
a
फ्रेम में
lot.
हो जाते हैं हम, लाइक वेरी शॉर्ट साइटेड हो जाते हैं, वी कैन नॉट प्लान इन द फ्यूचर, और हमें छोटी लाइक लाइफ भी डिग्रेड होना स्टार्ट हो जाती है, और वो हुआ ही है लास्ट 50 इयर्स में, वो हुआ है, एंड दैट कैन
Obviously,
रिवर्स.
people, see what happens is, I'll tell you why. Imagine even real estate will not do well in a Bitcoin standard. Why? Because real estate is a very poor store of value. But why real estate has really grown so big over the last 50 years is not because people need new homes. One home is sufficient for you. The reason they buy the second home or the third home is because it's savings technology. They know the value of this home will increase, even though the rental value on that home is 3% and they're paying a 9% interest. But the average appreciation of 10% a year, which is in line with the expansion of global M2, as I said, even in comparing it against the S&P, it's been a good investment. Excuse me. So people invested in real estate because they knew it was their savings. Their value is not going to get extracted away. But when you have a money itself which is not going to get extracted away or inflated away, then there would be no need for buying a second home. So the diminishing cost will decrease to such an extent only to the utility value of it. And this will actually give rise to further affordable housing, in my opinion. More and more people will be able to afford a home,
Definitely.
rather than like in today's world, where the
Yes.
incentive structure is such that the rich people have garnered all the properties, and there is no scope for poor people because real estate has become so expensive as an investment also today for most of the people. You only dream of owning a house, whereas in a Bitcoin standard, everybody will be having a house, because the value of the house will be its utility value rather than its investment value. Right now, the utility value is less, the monetary value, the investment value is higher. I hope I'm making you understand in the right
या
way.
डेफिनेटली रियल एस्टेट के पास मॉनेटरी प्रीमियम है ना, तो वो लूज करेगा सारा, एंड व्हेन वी से दिस टू रियल एस्टेट गाइस, लाइक वो बोल रहे कि ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता, बट या
Because they
दे
don't
विल सी.
understand it yet. They haven't understood the monetary history of the world. They don't understand. उनको पता है बस वो real estate बढ़ता है. क्यों बढ़ता है ये नहीं पता. Why it rises is because the underlying denominator is getting debased at a very fast pace of 8 to 12% average, as is the current norm with fiat currencies, even with the most developed economies. And plus the inflation rate is about 5 to 6%. So if you're not earning 18% or more every annum, you're getting poorer. Every single year you're getting poorer. You don't realize it because inflation is a hidden tax. It's a slow tax. If the government comes and says, okay, I'm going to take 2% away from you every year. So, you're okay with it. What is 2%? But if the government tells you that, I'm going to take half of your wealth in 10 years, then you will be like, what? But 2%, I mean, 3 or 4% equates to about half of your purchasing power in 10 years, So it's like people don't do the maths. They're very bad at it. अब वो भेड़ चाल है that everybody thinks real estate is a very good investment. Yes, it has been a good investment. But until now, with a high interest rate environment now coming across the world, because bond yields are actually rising, the bond prices have been slaughtered by 50% in the treasury markets itself in the US over the last 5 years. The yields are becoming higher and higher. There is a lot of term premium, a risk factor associated with buying long-term government bonds. People are not trusting it. And because of these high interest rate benchmark rates of the US Treasury, the mortgage rates will be very high in the near future or in the medium to long-term future. With mortgage rates being high, the real estate can never do well. Real estate is an interest arbitrage opportunity because the moment you buy real estate at 2% and the appreciation will be 10% and you get a rental figure of 3 to 4%, you're doing pretty well, 16, 17% a year. But if the interest rate itself is 8 to 10%, and in that scenario, real estate can never do well because you just cannot pay the EMI. It's about cash flow.
Absolutely.
So people don't understand it. It's simple mathematics that people don't get into. वो सब चलता है, सब हो रहा है, वो अभी कब तक होएगा वो
Right. और ये 70-80s में जो रियल एस्टेट का जो मोनेटाइजेशन स्टार्ट हुआ था ना, सो नाउ इट इज अनवाइंडिंग. अगर आपने देखा होगा साइड में न्यूज आ जाती है कि ब्लैक रॉक और ये लोग हैं सारे जो बड़े बड़े फंड, वो दे आर स्टार्टिंग टू डाइल्यूट देयर रियल एस्टेट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. यहाँ आते आते शायद 5 साल हो जाएंगे इंडिया में, लोगों को समझ में आते आते शायद.
Not really.
But they have started doing it.
The shift will happen very quickly, in my opinion. Now, I think the interest rates are bound to rise. It will not go down from here. And the moment the interest rates rise across the world, real estate becomes not only a bad investment, it becomes the worst investment because it's also an illiquid investment. Bitcoin being the most liquid 24/7 globally traded currency, you can liquidate at any moment of time. But try doing the same with real estate. It's impossible. It takes 6 months, 1 year to get a property liquidated with all the registries done, all the paperwork and all the property taxes and everything and maintenance. It's a lot of hassle. So people will understand it. I think this consciousness shift will happen very quickly, especially at the top end of the economic strata, which are very smart people. Most of the people are very busy in their lives. They don't understand it. So I can't talk about them. But the rich guys, the wealthy people will understand it very, very quickly. The pension funds, and these endowments, they will not understand because they're run by commoners, just like people like, if you talk to a mutual fund guy, he's just as idiotic. I mean, if you talk to a bank guy, he doesn't know that banks create money. Banks add to global M2.
Yeah, definitely. They don't know like what cash reserve ratio is.
I asked my banker the other day that when you issue me a loan, let's say if I were to take a loan from you, now you credit my account with that deposit money and that M2 liability comes into the picture. But okay, this is an asset for the bank. Which is the account that you that you debit first in order to credit me? There is no account that you debit. It's just pure money creation.
Right.
But he doesn't know that. He doesn't know the answer to it. The point is that people don't understand how the monetary plumbing works. They just don't understand. If I were to tell you that, uh, the global debt is this, global liquidity is this, the secondary markets, the private credit, and how the money is coming into existence through central banks and through the commercial banks, it's a very boring subject. Nobody wants to get into it. So, you
Right,
know,
right. Agreed, agreed.
yeah,
Having said that, now हमने financial aspect के बारे में बहुत बात कर ली. Now, the main question, and in terms of the technology advancements, so it's been what 16 years, and Bitcoin has solidified itself as a store of value. And there's a lot of debate happening. Medium of exchange क्या होगा, and unit of account कब बनेगा. So, what are you looking for in the technology advancements? Do you have any opinion on Lightning Network, Liquid, Fedimint, Nostr, Arc, जैसे advancements which are happening?
yeah, amazing question, man. See, Bitcoin is about technology advancements only, and Bitcoin being decentralized and secure, you can build scalability on top of it. So money operates at different levels. And as you said, Lightning and Arc, these are off-chain payment solutions. This is like a layer two on Bitcoin. Lightning operates through payment channels which people open between each other, and then the liquidity is created within those channels, and then they route payments from different people across the world who don't know each other, and it works seamlessly and completely decentralized, and it doesn't require any trust or counterparty risks. Now you came to Nostr. Nostr is basically a messaging protocol. Like Bitcoin is a payment protocol, it's a money protocol. Nostr is more like a messaging protocol, which works again on client relays. It's not a client server architecture, it's relay and client. And what are these relays? These are again nodes which are running the network. And Nostr is very well integratable with Bitcoin, and in fact people can actually even today zap these satoshis, which are the smallest unit in Bitcoin, also called sats, seamlessly with, if you like my content on Nostr, you can just zap me 25,000 or 20,000 satoshis or 10 satoshis, whatever you want. So the point is that these are technologies which are getting built on top of Bitcoin. I'm extremely fascinated by them. I study about them. I learn every day about them. Obviously, uh, being in business and also being in Bitcoin, it's not possible for me to be in depth at all times with all the nitty gritties of all these. But I understand the basic level architecture and where these technologies are leading Bitcoin to. They're leading it towards scalability. And that's what we want. And that is the scalability which will make Bitcoin the medium of exchange and the unit of account eventually, as to answer your question.
Got it. Awesome.
Beautiful,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, भाविक आपको कुछ उसमें ऐड करना है, बिकॉज आप
Yeah.
नॉस्टर के ज्यादा बड़े फैन हो.
No, I said like beautiful. Like, मुझे थोड़ा ये पूछना था कि आपने ये कहा था कि you also explored Bitcoin development through mastering Bitcoin. So, like, did you learn it by your own, or like, how was it? How was the journey? मुझे
Yeah, yeah,
हमेशा रहा है
yeah.
कि मुझे भी जानना है, सीखना है, but I have
I've
never
been a
ventured into this.
I've been a self-learner, as I said. So I've learned to code on the Bitcoin blockchain. I've learned to code on Ethereum. I've actually launched a lot of smart contracts on Goerli on the Ethereum test network, and I've done it on the Solana mainnet also. I've launched my own Facebook
Nice.
clone app on Solana. I've also done some other crazy little things here and there on my GitHub, you will see. But the point is that it was a fascinating experience for me. And eventually, after learning everything, then I had to unlearn and relearn that eventually it's all about the money. And Bitcoin is the only money. So why to, waste your time on anything else except Bitcoin? Obviously, technologies will come and go, and utilities will come and go. And these utilities will keep having change in narratives, but the bedrock is always going to be Bitcoin. If Bitcoin fails, everything else fails. But if Bitcoin does not fail, then you might have these you will keep having these better versions of Bitcoin. But the point is, as Jeff
Okay.
Booth very clearly says, you cannot build you know you can build scalability on top of decentralization and security, but you cannot do the other way around. It's the Triffin's dilemma also, that it's like It's a triangle: security, scalability,
Blockchain
and
dilemma, right? Blockchain
blockchain trilemma.
dilemma.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
blockchain trilemma.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Tariff
the
वाला आ
point,
गया आपका.
ट्रिफिन आ गया गलती से. ट्रिफिन सर तो यूएस डॉलर के लिए एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. सॉरी.
Yes, yes.
So the point is that you can build, once the network is completely secure, like Bitcoin is, nobody can mess with it. It's so much of electrical consumption, so much of energy usage, proof of work, nobody can mess with it. So it's completely secure. And it's very decentralized. There are hundreds of thousands of people running nodes. There are millions of small miners. There are so many mining pools, big miners, etc., etc. So that's the decentralization. You can build the scalability as, like, the internet was built on top of TCP/IP. You know, there were other protocols also, but why did TCP/IP became the only protocol that got accepted? Because of the
Right,
ease, and
right, right.
it's that same logic.
Strong
Bitcoin
fundamentals, like foundation is strong. Bitcoin का foundation is
foundation
strong.
is strong. Foundation is strong. Bitcoin's foundation nobody can match. That's why it's a discovery, and it's also the unique point is that even Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared, so there's nobody to go after Bitcoin. That's also another beauty. So, in my opinion, this was like a gift to humanity, and somehow the disappearance of Satoshi was an add-on. So there's no marketing, PR, admin team in Bitcoin. Like you have a marketing, admin, PR team in Ethereum or Solana, and a foundation like a Sui Foundation, Aptos Foundation. There's no foundation in Bitcoin. It's just
Right.
evangelists like you and me
There is no
talking and
scene.
educating people why Bitcoin matters and why it is the only thing that matters today, especially in today's environment.
True.
Okay. One last question from my side. What is the biggest threat you like? आपको लग रहा है कि जो Bitcoin के लिए? What is the biggest threat for Bitcoin, in your opinion?
I think Bitcoin has crossed the chasm of having the biggest threats, even if the black rocks and the micro strategies accumulate 2%, 5%, 10%. Bitcoin is basically backed by rules and mathematics. It's no rulers. So he has the same say as you and me. And it's that distrust that allows the trust to be maintained in the Bitcoin network. You're getting my point? It's that distrust. Having said that, I think Coinbase custody is the biggest risk for me. Coinbase Prime, because they are custodying the Bitcoin for almost everybody, including the ETFs, including MicroStrategy. If somebody gets to hack Coinbase, I think that is a very big risk. But I think these risks will keep getting mitigated over a period of time in 5-10 years. Fidelity is doing its own custody. A lot of other custody players are coming into the picture. Even banks have been given in US the green light to custody because of the repeal of SAB 121 and the soft notice given by the Federal Reserve. They are free to do that. So the point is that the doors have been opened, the green lights have been given. It's all the way to the heaven to Valhalla. It's just that you have to wait a little bit longer. That's all. But the world is catching up very quickly.
Yeah. Coming to that point, मैंने आपका yesterday एक tweet देखा था. And since you both in this space, in this frame, since you both are ultra bullish, I would want to know and not holding you accountable or anything. And this is not an investment advice for anyone watching this, but what do you see the price for the next 1 year?
See, I am very, very, very bullish. And the reason for that is I also mentioned in one of my tweets day before yesterday. There are 4 reasons. Number 1, Trump is trapped. He knows it. 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of these tariff tantrums will destroy the economy. The shelves will be empty. There will be hoarding, black marketing, maybe even civil unrest. Powell is also trapped because the current inflation numbers don't allow him to actually reduce rates, which is desperately needed by the US government to reduce its deficit, its interest rate, interest expense. But the point is that even if the US goes into a deflationary spiral, okay, first in this scenario, what happens is in such a scenario, the US 10-year yields will actually rise further, which means more interest costs for the government. So, which means they're going to be get even more trapped. Then the Fed will be having no option but to come into the picture and do yield curve control, which is basically buying treasuries at a certain rate at a face value, capping the yield, which is another form of quantitative easing. And what is quantitative easing? It's money printing. So even if the numbers in inflation go up and the Fed has to raise rates, meaning the interest costs go up, then the Fed has to again come to do yield curve control, because they cannot allow the SOFR and Fed fund rates spreads to blow out. SOFR is the system of overnight financing rate versus the Fed funds rate. Sorry, I've just got a little sore throat.
No.
So if that situation happens, then the Fed is also trapped. And if somehow the US goes into a deflationary spiral because the consumer sentiment is tanking, because of mass layoffs, because of these tariffs, and people are just not cutting down on their investments, basically, then also the Fed cannot allow deflation to happen. They will have to come in and actually, do explicitly quantitative easing, which again is money printing, which is number go up for Bitcoin. So that's number 2 reason. Number 3 is that, after the establishment of the US strategic Bitcoin reserve, do you think other countries will not be noticing and not paying attention and not wanting to add Bitcoin to their own sovereign balance sheets? I think they would be. And they would be doing so behind the scenes. Some would be buying it by printing money, which is the best in my opinion. Some would be mining it. And this game theory is going to only accelerate. It's going to happen very quickly now. And the number 4 reasons is that with the repeal of SAB 121 from the SEC in the US, the banks have been given a complete green light. No more crypto sanctions, no more operation choke points or regulatory bottlenecks. It's a complete green signal to go and offer services to their customers in terms of buying and selling from their platforms or custody solutions. BNY Mellon has already had been given the approval last year itself. So the point is, banks like to make a lot of money. And what makes you think they will not want to embrace crypto and make more money? They would definitely make more money. So these are 4 reasons which I really think are going to accelerate Bitcoin adoption. And acceleration means it's going to be super acceleration from here, especially in the post-halving year like we are. So in my opinion, I think we could go and touch between 400K to 1 million this year itself. That's my bullish thesis. Unless and until the world really goes into a big depression and the central banks don't print money, which I don't see. I mean, that is also a possibility, that the US goes into a deflationary spiral, but the Federal Reserve doesn't print. Jerome Powell wants to poke his nose and become the next Paul Volcker, and they don't print money, because inflation is nothing but money printing. It is only caused by the government spending and money printing by the central banks. There is no other method of creating inflation, as the famous economist Milton Friedman says. So I'm talking a little more technical here, but in my opinion, between 400K to 1 million will be the top in this cycle, and it should happen very quickly over the next 6 to 9 months. It will accelerate very quickly now.
Got it. भाविक, आपके charts and analysis क्या कह रहे हैं? हमारे रेगुलर शो पे बात होते रहती है, but for this video sake.
Yeah. So फंडामेंटल तो आपने जो बोला, मैं उसमें काफ़ी या मेरा भी यही व्यू है, बट मैं थोड़ा ना न्यूमरोलॉजी भी देखता हूँ, एस्ट्रोलॉजी, और एस्ट्रोलॉजी न्यूमरोलॉजी के हिसाब से भी नेक्स्ट फरवरी तक बिटकॉइन 1.5 मिलियन पहुंच रहा है, लाइक जो भी. सो वो पूरा उसके साथ वो जब
एस्ट्रोलॉजी तो चलो समझ में आता है, प्लैनेटरी मूवमेंट्स हैं और फेवरेबल है कि नहीं है वो बता सकता है, बट नंबर्स कैसे बता सकते हैं एस्ट्रोलॉजी में? ये नंबर तो कहीं से आपने डिराइव किया है, ये बताओ मुझे.
हाँ, राइट. सी
माय नंबर्स आर डिराइव्ड ऑन द अमाउंट ऑफ मनी सप्लाई.
कैन यू सी दिस?
यस.
थोड़ा बहुत आपको ये नंबर का स्ट्रक्चर दिख रहा है, राइट?
ओके.
सो दिस इज गैन स्क्वायर ऑफ 9. एक WD गैन करके 100 साल पहले एक बंदा था यूएस में. सो उसने सबसे पहले एस्ट्रोलॉजी और बाइबल का यूज करके स्टॉक मार्केट ट्रेडिंग करना स्टार्ट किया था. एंड देन ही केम टू इंडिया एंड इजिप्ट, और यहाँ के जो तंत्रा और इजिप्ट के जो न्यूमरोलॉजी था वो उसने जान के लाइक ही हैज डेवलप, इतना डेवलप किया था कि वो एक रूम में बैठा है और पूरे दिन का वो स्टॉक बता देता था. सो आई हैव बीन रीडिंग हिज बुक्स फॉर लास्ट 6 months, थोड़ा और भी न्यूमरोलॉजी. तो कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा बहुत लाइक आई आई मे नो अराउंड लाइक मे बी 0.0001% ऑफ हिज नॉलेज, बट वहां से कहीं ना कहीं लग रहा है कि लाइक इट कैन स्पाइक अप.
So at least one thing is clear from this podcast, that Bhavik is even more bullish than me.
Yeah, my target is like 1.6.
I
Like,
like that, man. I like that. Really good.
yeah, but yeah, amazing.
We keep having these conversations on a day to day. मैं बोलता हूँ कि नहीं, ऐसे पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. I am in the power law camp, so मेरा conservative is 200K. So
मुझे लगा पावर लो ब्रेक होगा, लाइक मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है. लेट्स सी, मुझे ऐसा लग
100%
रहा
all
है.
your models will be destroyed, as Michael Saylor very clearly says. When the billionaires, the big guys, the big boats start to adopt Bitcoin as their primary reserve asset or treasury reserve asset, all your models will be broken. If the
True.
US government goes and buys Bitcoin, which inevitably they would have to, if they have to actually get out of this mess, because there are only two ways. They can monetize the gold and bring it to current value and devalue the dollar against it, buy some Bitcoin with some of the proceeds of that valuation. That is the only way. Actually, that is the only way to come out of this mess.
Right.
So, necessity is the mother of all inventions. You will see the necessity arrive, the consciousness will shift. There will be a big mad race amongst companies and nations alike to accumulate Bitcoin. The frenzy will start. And once this frenzy starts, then you never know how big the jump of Bitcoin can be, even though it is starting from a 2 trillion base. We could reach $20 trillion within this cycle, which is the market cap of gold. And then we might drop by another 40, 50, 60%. We never know in the bear market. But in the frenzy and the mania phase, we can definitely go to 1 million. That's why my maximum target was 1 million. But as I said, Bhavik is even more bullish than me. So I
Awesome.
like that. I like that.
Great, guys. Awesome. So Suveett, coming to the end, and we wouldn't want to take much of your time as well. What advice you would have to share among the youth of India and the one who are, towards retirement? So we cover a large group of people. And आपका क्या ख्याल है? How do you pitch for Bitcoin, or how do you want them to know about Bitcoin?
I don't think I can do too much by forcing some Bitcoin onto anybody's throat. I think it's a personal journey. Most of the retail crowd will understand when there is FOMO stage. Like you look at the Google trends today. But where money is made is when you have asymmetric information and you know the upside before anybody else. When everybody understands, then you can't really make money. But having said that, what I can suggest everybody is that please, if you can, try and read about the monetary history of the world, why hard money always wins, why fiat money is just a blip in the entire history of our civilization of 5,000, 10,000 years, and why eventually it's going to fail, and why real estate is not the solution for it. So if you keep asking these questions and excuse me, peel off the onion layer one by one, the only solution that will come to you is a digital, 100% digital, non-sovereign, hard-capped supply, permissionless, global, immutable, digital, decentralized store of value, and the name is Bitcoin. So all roads lead to Bitcoin. Is just that you have to do the homework to understand why. And once you understood that why, then Bitcoin becomes your portfolio, not a part of your portfolio. So this is a journey which I will only encourage everybody to at least start learning a little bit. Like right now, we get into complex mathematical equations. This company has this much free cash flow. This company has this much EBITDA. This company has this much price to earnings or price to sales or book value or market value. What is a discount? What is the cash flow? I mean, honestly, once you understand Bitcoin, you will say, oh my God, I mean, what was I doing? I have to, for that, you have to first unlearn and then relearn. It's a challenging journey. I don't blame people for not getting it, because we are so indoctrinated within the matrix, so heavily, intoxicated, that it's difficult to come out of the matrix. But once you do, Bitcoin is that freedom money, the solution, the hope, the peace it can provide to the world. And that is also one of the reasons why, if you will read in my bio, I say that Bitcoin maximalism is the cure to everything. And that is why I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, because I know it is the cure to this fiat Ponzi, to this inflation, to this high time preference that people have. Everybody wants to cheat the other person to go ahead.
Right.
Buildings are being made only of glass and steel and no marbles. Why? They're much more longer lasting with marbles. Also, you could build beautiful structures like you have the Sagrada Familia in Spain, or you have the chapels in Italy, and maybe even the mandirs that we have in India. Why can't we learn from that? Why this high time preference of just going ahead, beating everybody in the race? Why? Because the race itself is that you don't get poorer, and everybody is not able to figure why they're getting poorer. That is why you're in a race. But once you're on the Bitcoin standard, then your purchasing power is increasing every day, every month, every year. And then you do not have the need to, be cunning or cheat anybody, because your self purchasing power is growing. You're on the winning side. So your time preference, lowers down. You're thinking of your future generations rather than for the next 10 minutes or the next 1 year, what you're going to do, how you're going to cheat other people, how you're going to grow your money. Why? Because the money itself is corrupted. But this is again a philosophical thing. And to reach that level, I think you need to first understand Bitcoin, then you need to contribute to it, and then you have to get involved with other scholars in order to understand why Bitcoin is the cure for everything. And that's the stage that I am at, that I feel that Bitcoin is the cure to everything. Not everything, I mean, not all miseries in the world. Humans will be humans, we will have flaws, but it is the cure to at least the monetary system, which is due for a reset now.
Awesome.
राइट, ये
Thank
लाइन
you.
आगे जाके अब मैं यूज करने वाला हूँ आपकी. आप बिटकॉइन मैक्सिमलिज्म इज द क्योर फॉर एवरीथिंग. इट्स अ वेरी गुड लाइन. आज सुबह सुबह मैं अपनी वाइफ को बता रहा था कि आज हम जिसको इंटरव्यू लेने वाले हैं ना, उन्होंने ये लिखा हुआ है. ये एकदम लाइक ये कभी ये सबकॉन्शियसली पता था, पर आपने एकदम उसको शब्दों में ला दिया.
Thank you so much, man.
वेरी ब्यूटीफुल. या
Thank you.
Chaliye, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. And we know you're a busy person, and hamara time.
No, it was really a privilege. It was really a privilege. I think this was an exciting conversation of 1.5 hours. And I'm very glad to be talking to young, enthusiasts like you guys who are actually on this missionary, path of educating everybody. And I really have all praises and kudos to the both of you as well for continuing on this journey and educate more and more people about Bitcoin.
Thank you. And hopefully after a few months, we can catch up again to see on, get your...
Let's see, February 2026, what happens. Whether Bhavik's prediction come true or mine come true, let's hope. Somewhere in between, we are happy.
Even otherwise, I mean, the price could be in any direction.
No, I'm not going to be... See, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy any which ways, but I'm not going to be content and at peace if it just reaches the power law 200K model. I'll be very honest. I think you're going much higher.
Right.
All your models will be destroyed, buddy.
Yeah. Like 200, 300 will be the very bearish thing. Yeah.
For me also. I mean, I would be happy with any appreciation, but I don't think I'll be content with 200K, because I think the mass shift in consciousness is going to happen very soon.
Awesome.
Right.
Let's hope so. Chaliye, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure meeting you. See you.
Likewise.